Hey everybody, welcome to G4G on YouTube. Today we're taking a continued look at the Blizzard saga that has been going on with poor Blitzchung. So several things have occurred since we first were talking about it, the most important of which is that J. Allen Barrick has gone ahead and J. Allen Brack has gone ahead and put out a press release concerning the events for Blitzchung. Needless to say, from a PR perspective, it's not good. His press statement, press release is actually kind of bad. And what Blizzard is doing going forward for Blitzchung is kind of bad. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of TLDR his post, and then we're going to dip into a press release that I came up with to show you what should have been done in this situation. And it borrows a lot of themes from him, but it's done in a way that Blizzard should have handled the Blitzchung thing going forward when they came up with their press release. When we get to mine, I have made mention several times of, quote-unquote, we acted in haste or reacted quickly. It came to my attention just recently that they actually took up to about 48 hours before they took action against what Blitzchung had done in his match. And in my press statement, I had a sort of protection for the casters because I didn't originally think that they were involved, but apparently there was a Twitter post in which one of the casters was like, say what you gotta say it quickly, and then like we're gonna duck out of sight or something, which is actually what they did. So it did seem that they had some involvement in it, which I didn't realize originally. It was only mentioned in one place that I had been catching data on this event, and it wasn't parodied. It wasn't parroted around to all of the sites and all the people doing videos on it, that the casters were in on it rather than being innocent drive-by victims. So that part of my statement goes out. So I'm going to call him Brack for the rest of this, just because it's easier. So Brack basically says that the first thing he does is he brings up the two mottos that were covered up outside of Blizzard headquarters with the loose leaf paper, and that is the think globally and lead responsibly. And he also adds that every voice matters. And he says that our esports programs are an expression of our vision and our values. They exist to create opportunities for players around the world from different cultures, backgrounds, etc. It's extremely important to protect the channels of communication and use them for the purpose that they serve, to bring the world together. And then he says, here's how we are applying those values. We understand that people are questioning that we're not sticking to our values, but here's how we are applying them in the circumstance. He says, we interview competitors who are at the top of their craft to show how they feel. We want to hear their excitement, share their experience. Over the weekend, Blitzchung used a segment to make a statement about the situation in Hong Kong, which is a violation of rules that he acknowledged and understood, and that's why he took the action. That might be a stretch. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed that he knew that there was a technical law on the books about this. Now, for those of you who are in the U.S., you know what we've been going through since prior to 2016. And if you are outside of the United States, you probably know just as well. My guess is that law on the books about making political statements and things like that is probably most very much due to the political climate in the States, where the right and the left have spun very far apart from each other. I'm thinking Blizzard put that in at a time in which they didn't want to see somebody up on stage for a Hearthstone championship wearing something like a MAGA hat. And no matter what your viewpoint is, whether you are right or left or centrist or whatever, you know that those colors, those words, and everything like that have been general bad news in the public eye for some time. You could agree with it or you can disagree with should it be allowed and bandied about just anywhere. That's not what I'm debating. I'm simply bringing up the fact that it does cause a stir wherever it goes, whether it's either in the positive and like-minded individuals show up, or most often it is negative and people have gotten into physical altercations. I would really wonder when that rule was put in the book, whether it was in the books, so to speak, right from the very beginning, or was something put in relatively new. But I strongly believe it has very much to do with U.S. people not offending other U.S. people, which is very, very ironic in this situation, and we'll certainly get to that. Second, what is the role of the shoutcasters for these broadcasts? We hire the shoutcasters to amplify the excitement of the game. They elevate the watchability, and they help esports viewing experience stay focused on the tournament and the players. Parentheses, not the message that somebody might put out. Third, were our actions based on the content of the message? Part of thinking globally, leading responsibility, blah blah blah, bullshit, is recognizing that we have players and fans in almost every country in the world. Our goal is to help these players connect in commonality. The specific views expressed by Blitzchung were not a factor in the decision that we made. I want to go ahead and hit pause on the cassette tape over here and say nobody believes this. Nobody believes this further than they can throw brack brack. Because you have the Chinese Hearthstone side division putting forth a statement that they were very upset and very angry over what was said last Monday, and they will defend to the death China and its flag and its pride and everything. They have very much stated that they are very angry at the utterance in support of Hong Kong. And whereas Blizzard is less involved with Tencent than Epic, which is kind of funny when Tim Sweeney for Epic is like, we would never do that. We would stand with anybody who is supporting Hong Kong's rebellion. Like, dude, what? No, like, nobody believes you on this. I mean, you're so in bed with Tencent, we don't know where Epic ends and Tencent begins at times. At least with Blizzard and Activision, Actard, as the acronym was so many years ago, Tencent's stake in this is less. However, so many businesses, and you can see this with NBA and the movies and everything, they know they can rely on the Chinese market to bolster them. As I said in the first video, there is a possibility of a second World of Warcraft movie, because the first World of Warcraft movie did way better in China than it did in the States. And as a fan of Blizzard and World of Warcraft, or Warcraft as it were, I was excited to hear that China may have bailed us out, and now you feel dirty for having that belief. It almost sounds sad, and this is the one thing that I will give a nod to in Trump's direction. If his pressure on China with the tariffs and everything like that, and the things that he's been saying about China, are an effort to get us away from these type of scenarios where American companies show the China populace a ridiculous amount of deference, then it's actually something of his that I support, because this is turning out to be pretty bad, and nobody believes Brackbrack here, because this looks like this was very much done for the majority of China and its viewership and everything, rather than Hong Kong itself. However, China's been on a ridiculous tear lately with South Park and the NBA and this. we're putting too much stock in caring about them, and we really shouldn't. I mean, I'm sure South Park doesn't, but um, Activision does 5% of their income or less from there. I mean, that's so very, very far not on the same universe as a majority, even though 5% is multi-millions at this point, and Bobby Kotick is a little shit-faced weasel greedy bag. I just, we need to stop really caring how things happen in China, because they've never cared about how things happen in the U.S. with their, at times, at least in the 80s and 90s, that what is believed to be the vastly inferior product. And on eBay, I just don't deal with Chinese sellers anymore. I've had so many bad experiences with them that when I'm searching for something, I hit that check that says North America only. It's not a racist thing, mind you. It is a part shipping thing and a part multiple bad experience thing that it's not worth it. No matter if it, like, something, if a Lamborghini costs 25 cents but it says it's coming from China, oh well, I'm not having a Lamborghini for a quarter. So Brack continues and says that we have these rules to keep the focus on the game, and had the opposing viewpoint been delivered in the same divisive and deliberate way, we would have felt and acted the same. Probably not. And this is where the American team comes in, ironically enough, American University. American University held up a sign in their collegiate match that was like, basically free Nelson Mandela. Was like, we support Hong Kong, free Hong Kong. And the stream quickly went to the other team. American University was originally punished, and then before Blitzchung's back out, they backed off of American U and said, never mind, you guys are okay. And America U was like, no, we're not okay. We don't believe in this. We're getting way less punishment than poor Blitzchung did, and we did something far more deliberate, and actually a little bit heavier handed than what he did, and we're suffering no punishment. So that goes to show you that the censorship is on behalf of China and no other reason. So we are going to forfeit our matches. So American University is definitely taking a huge stand on it. But continuing, he talks about what's appropriate for pre- and post-match conduct, especially when a player accepts recognition for winning in a broadcast. We've thought about the suspension. We think 6 months is more appropriate, and we're going to give him his money back. So he gets the money for the win, which I believe rightfully should, but that's coming up. And his 1-year ban got knocked down to 6. And he goes on to say, our goal at Blizzard is to make sure every player everywhere in the world, regardless of political views, religious beliefs, race, gender, or any other consideration, always feels safe and welcoming in both competing and playing in our games. I don't feel safe with the changes to Tracer's butt from 3 years ago. I want Tracer's original butt back. How about that, Blizzard? Just kidding. So, because his press release was so bad in the fact that it never apologizes, it never really explains anything other than saying, but my rule books, and doesn't ever take any responsibility for what's happened. I've crafted my own, and this is how I would have done it. Now, granted, I'm not the businessman, and I didn't really put into consideration walking around the general Chinese public of this, the socialist Chinese public of it, as compared to Hong Kong. That doesn't come through in this because I wouldn't have cared. I'm doing strictly from a communications and an empathy and a human aspect of this, not a business aspect of it. But hello, Blizzard community. I would like to take a few moments of your time to discuss the events surrounding last weekend's Hearthstone Grandmaster Tournament. On Monday, we made a quick and perhaps excessive decision against the player named Blitzchung. So this is incorrect. it wasn't quick. I would maybe mitigate that into anything with the equivalent of semi-quick. And perhaps excessive decision against the player named Blitzchung and two shoutcasters involved in the match after Blitzchung shared his views on the current state of affairs in Hong Kong. This occurred during the post-match interview on our official channel. At Blizz, our vision is bring entertain, so the core values and everything. I abbreviated that. We also have core values that we apply to everything we do, and that is to think globally, lead responsibility, and more importantly, that every voice matters. We encourage everybody to share their views, and as you can see from any Blizzard forum, people do. So this sets him up as realistic and somewhat funny and in touch with the Blizzard population. It's a nod to the Baron levels. By Baron, I mean World of Warcraft, Horde area Baron, the Barons. It's a nod to the Barons-esque level that can go on the forums, and it just humanizes him a little bit, because he's not human in his at all. The actions we took last weekend are calling into question our values, and if we are still committed to upholding them. The answer is yes, we are, and please allow me to explain. So this keeps the blame within Blizzard rather than saying you guys are calling that into question and we're on the defensive. It's saying the universe is calling it into question. And it puts more of the weight on themselves than the populace. Our esports programs have and will always be an expression of our vision and values. We take great pride in these programs, and we understand the passion and desire of our Blizzard players. We also understand the state of the world today creates passionate people that wish for their voices to be heard, especially the youth of the world. I hope Blitzchung is young, because that's kind of... I was informed he's in his 30s. He's not young. So one of my points is sort of going out the window here. I was playing up to a particular narrative that he could focus on. See, my press release comes from a state of walking the fine line of BlizzCon. Blizzard is in a damned if they do, damned if they don't moment at this point in time. Basically, they're fucked either way. If they do something super, super light and back everything down and just go, sorry, big bulbous American penis, sorry, China penis, so smooth. If they do something and kowtow like that to the situation, everybody will accuse them of just trying to save BlizzCon. And that would be a fair criticism. They would be right. But if they do a heavy-handed approach and continue to have things be very tight against Blitzchung, then BlizzCon 2019 is going to go down in the annals of clown fiestas. There will be a pagan tire fire ritual right outside of the venue. And it's going to be bad. And the more Nazi Gestapo-ish tactics that they take during BlizzCon to prevent the backlash will just create more backlash. So literally at this point in time, they are screwed no matter what, unless they walk the fine line. And that's what I was trying to do in what I would do for the press release here. Well, the youth stuff is going to go out, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's pretend he's youthful. I mean, if he's in his low 30s, that's still pretty youthful. It's just not quite what I was going for. Anyway, it's no surprise. It is no surprise for somebody to take an opportunity of being listened to and express their own passions and desires on topics outside of the Blizzard community. While that passion is understood, we do have a rule in place that provides guidelines for commenting on events outside the world of Blizzard games. While we cannot fault Blitzchung for commenting on the current climate in Hong Kong, it does go against our rules and our intended spirit of fairness. So it's saying, like, look, we get it, but we have rules in place. This is a balanced form of a statement. It's not coming down on Blitzchung for what he's saying, but it's like, hey guys, we understand you have a sports car, but you're not allowed to do 90 in a bike lane. Like, come on guys. It's shooting for that. It's not casting blame, but it's explaining. We strive to have the viewing experience of our esports stay focused on the games, the tournaments, and the players themselves. This is one of the only times Blizzard has been faced with this situation and somebody running afoul of this rule. We have very carefully took stock interactions from Monday and realized we took things too far because we are not often placed in this position. Removing Blitzchung's money was deemed punitive and unfair. The money was earned during a legitimate match and nothing occurred during the match that should change that. So this is sort of like saying the team earned the win because there was no cheating, there was no steroids, there was no hacking or anything like that. Blitz should rightfully keep his money. And while you see things like this in boxing in the UFC, for example, if you don't make weight, the UFC does not allow you your full purse. If you were to do something after the match, you would get a fine. You still keep your purse, but you get a fine, so they wind up getting some of it back. That's what I was shooting for here, is that he legitimately won it. The match is not in question. You've earned it. You get to keep it. So the money was earned during a legitimate match. Nothing had changed yet. As for Blitzchung's ban, we feel that was too intense also. The shoutcasters, while present for these events, did not encourage BC's comments. This is not true at this point. There is a believable Twitter verification that they were in on it, so this point goes out. This all being said, we would like to make several changes to the punishment we handed out on Monday. First, Blitzchung's earnings will be returned to him. Blizzard and I agree on that. Second, the year ban against Blitzchung has been changed to a 6-month probationary period in which Blitzchung shall only stick to commentary on his matches or opponents. This is basically the Family Guy, everybody gets one, Peter. It's strong, but it's not heavy-handed. It's like, okay, look, the dude fucked up. We're not going to ban him for a year because we are taking away his livelihood, potentially. But he is in serious hot water and he will be monitored. And I'm going to harp on that in just a little moment. Third, the shoutcasters present have been rehired and are not suffering any further consequences. If they were in on it, I would change it to be rehired but were fined. That's what I would put over here. Blizzard understands how our values should apply to our staff and our esports competitors. We understand the fire, passion, and desire to be listened to when it comes to our fierce competitors. That's overuse of competitors there. I would fix that. We also understand we live in a very fast-paced and exciting and very often a very dichotomous world. Many of us on Blizzard staff have lived through similar times in our own lives, like the civil rights movements of the 60s. This is why I was harping up the youth of it, because in the 60s, civil rights movements, it was college-age kids that were pushing everything, and they were taking those opportunities to speak out about it. And you had people like Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay doing what they did to speak out about it. And I mean, you have Colin Kaepernick, which of course is way more divisive than Muhammad Ali was, where Muhammad Ali gained all the youth attention from what he was doing. It was the older people who didn't like it. Kaepernick is kind of a 50-50 split across all ages as to whether or not you agree with what he's done. But let this situation act as a warning to all staff and esports competitors. Official Blizzard events and channels should remain solely focused on the game or the event at hand and should not stray into social commentary on the world at large. Blizzard values inclusivity, and we do not wish anybody's enjoyment to be hampered by an expression of views or values that might not be shared. Thank you very much for your time and understanding. Brack Brack. So I have to throw a few of my points out there. Obviously, is he's a little older than I thought, and the shoutcasters maybe were in on it. But I was going for more of a, we're backing this up a little bit, but I want everybody to know, don't pull the shit again. Like, everybody else is on notice. If something happens at BlizzCon and you're a professional and you're like playing Overwatch and you say something, or the announcer John Madden's a mask on May on the screen and just is like and draws a mask or umbrella on her while they're waiting for something. He's like putting people on notice. Hey, you got one through. We're chilling out a little bit about it because this doesn't happen much, and we're adjusting and dealing with this kind of stuff. But nobody else better pull anything. And it sets them up to be heavy-handed if things continue or something goes crazy at BlizzCon or whatever, or a caster stands up from their position and rips open their button-down shirt with a t-shirt below it that says Free Hong Kong or something. They set them up to take their original Blitzchung level actions, provided somebody does it going forward. But they're basically giving everybody a pass that's involved now. That is the best way that I think they could wrap this up in a type burrito that makes the public happy and hopefully stops BlizzCon shenanigans, but at the same time still doesn't seem like a company that is going to get walked all over. If you agree that's a little too lax, you could say that he gets his earnings back, but he is fined. My goal was really for him to continue along the path that he earned in Hearthstone. And even though American University's choosing not to, even though they've been allowed, this balances the scales a little bit more. And even though some of the data was off, I think this is a far better of a press release to assuaging the public than what Brack actually did. And at this point, if everything is going to go the way Brack is saying, and there's going to be no changes, there probably is not going to be any changes to how BlizzCon is going to be handled. It is going to be a goat head pagan ritual at this place this year. And I'm going to watch all of it from the comfort of my home. I feel like I'm going to watch The Purge BlizzCon 2019. Like, this is going to be a Purge movie this year. And unless Blizzard changes something drastically, they're screwed either way. From the moment that BlizzCon starts, and even before it, they are in a frying pan fryer, hot water in the pot, hot water out of the pot situation over here, because they can't win. People will go and unless people who are not intending to get into the gates of BlizzCon protest outside of it, that's the one thing Blizzard should hope for, is that it's a bunch of outsiders who stay outside and don't try to get in, and then whatever. Let the cops deal with it if it gets too bad. But if it's people getting into the venue, and Neckbeard Quartering was like, I'll open a GoFundMe if somebody sends me to BlizzCon, and like, I'll wear a shirt, I'll do it. And I'm like, no, dude, absolutely not. I want fans going to BlizzCon, not, people talk about paid shills and everything. You're a paid instigator if you do something like that, and that doesn't help anybody. Go and be a fan. That's cool. Go and be a fan that has a voice. That's fine. But if you're going simply to be literally a troll, that's where that's a huge breakdown right there. But they're really screwed either way. They can't win on this, because once people start getting inside, and if there is any Hong Kong related shirts or paraphernalia, or people with a May Funko Pop with a mask on it, running around with it, holding that, or having it like on their shoulder like a fucking parrot or something, or just umbrellas. Like, I mean, umbrellas are going to be bad at this. I mean, it's LA, it never rains, so nobody would need an umbrella anyway. So one umbrella showing up is going to be cause for alarm. And if they take a very Nazi stance, like I said, and start kicking these people out, especially paying ticket holders and people who can claim, I pre-ordered these, I've been sitting on these for half a year or something like that. Blizz's PR team should just probably jump out of a building at that point, because they're going to have their work cut out for them. So let me know what you guys think about my press release as compared to his, and mistakes about his age and everything aside, and the Shoutcaster involvement. Let me know. I'm definitely curious. Let me know if you think mine is better, mine's a little too loose, mine's still too heavy-handed. I'm just kind of interested. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.